Hello and welcome back to the One Shot Show where GMs go to level up. Before we get started, Patty, I have something for you.
A delight. What is this?
This is the cause of the 4-hour puzzle. May it live in infamy. Could you solve it just from that?
Oh, crikey. Okay, so for the context, I'm seeing a bunch of grids. I'm seeing a bunch of symbols. There's a small one with 4 and then some really big ones with multiple symbols in there. Holy, is this a puzzle you made?
I made this puzzle. Now, look, this initial construction is a pretty recognizable cipher, which some of my players did immediately clue into. What they didn't have is the entire rest of the context for the cipher, and it took 4 hours to get there.
Oh.
It was horrifically designed because that was all they had. That was the only handout I gave them, the only information they had to work with. Today, we are talking about giving your players handouts and giving them extra information that way.
I mean, yes, you nailed. In mine, I was kind of like, I wrote a case for and a case against handouts on my table.
This is a great case, both for and against, I would say.
It's incredible. I've had so many similar things, even with the simpler, it's typically puzzles, riddles or some screes of text that I present to my players.
It's like, hey, as you walk into the room, here's what you see.
Yeah.
And it needs to be represented visually if it's, a puzzle that involves some kind of cipher or shapes that they need to move around, things like that.
Even a map is a kind of a handout.
Exactly.
That can also trigger the same kind of, not choice paralysis, but the game goes into a different mode very quickly as soon as a handout appears.
I put a bunch of maps up in the Discord server we use to communicate and discuss the game. My players are welcome to check it. As far as I'm concerned, it's open information. My maps are often quite info light. They will have regions, they might have some major settlements, and a couple of significant geographic features might be mentioned. I'm going to be mentioning the Himalayas, the Rockies, and the Andes. I'm not going to be mentioning the Caucasus. I'm not going to be mentioning New Zealand's Southern Alps, right? I'm only going for the real heavy hitters of my world's geography. Capital cities, major settlements. There'll be more information in the setting guide. And I also make my players draw the connections between the two. I don't give them that. That's theirs to figure out in universe. I think that's interesting. It's a bit more immersive to my mind. Yeah. I'm very handout light.
I would say that I'm also reasonably handout light as a GM.
Well, what the fuck why are we talking about? We're the wrong people to cover this topic,
as a player, I've experienced some incredible handouts.
Right.
And I would say that I think it's an interesting, because every time I put a handout onto the table, it feels like a gamble. It is a part that feels very of the hobby, because we're at a table together, so there are physical objects often that we're interacting with, be they dice, be they
miniatures, maps,
yes, absolutely. And there are so many facets to a handout, and so many different kinds and different outcomes, and each has a different sort of risk reward, I feel like, built into them. The map is a classic one. It's like, how long do we all spend studying the map? And how much information is in there? Is that information my character would know? I think it's a beautiful thing to have at the table, but I've had games where I feel like players have derailed themselves because they've become so obsessed with the handout, or opposite, my planning has become derailed because I was intending for them to become invested in that handout.
or indeed, I was expecting them to find a note, and they never do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is something that I think is interesting as well. There's a related thing to touch on briefly about digital tools. I think if you're running your campaign digitally, handouts take on a very different form. Case in point, I'm in a Fallout game that's run on Roll20. Say what you will about the platform. One of the things it does have is the GM can go, you find this note, and it's immediately in everyone's overlay. You can go back and look at all of the previous notes that you found. You might be able to reread them and draw connections and so on. Now, that's a hell of a lot easier. And all the players have access to it simultaneously. It's a hell of a lot easier than a physical note that the players all have to hand around and look at the, and read. And one of them's like, oh, hold on, can I get that back off you? I think I saw something. And then who's going to hold on to it? Are you holding on to it? Is one of the players holding on to it? What's happening there? If it's something that might be relevant for a while, are they going to keep referring back to it? The opposite end of that issue, though, is if I don't have that prop, if I don't have that handout, and I say, you find a note that says blah, 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 and I say what it says, someone's got to write it down, and they've got to go, hold on, can you say that again? I'm still just writing that down. Sorry, just give me a second. Sorry, hold on. And by the way, that only works because I have a note taker at my table. If I don't have that, then I'm massively up shit creek, right?
Absolutely.
So Man, what a weirdly complicated topic this actually is when you get down to the brass tacks of it. Because at the end of the day, I just design my game around not having or needing or wanting handouts, in particular outside of puzzles. I don't have notes. I don't have documents that they need to keep and pass around. I strip that all the way out of my game. I let it all exist very diegetically. I think the only time I've ever done a really traditional kind of handout is one player received a note from their noble parent, and I did the whole type it out and tea stain it kind of thing. I went real extra for the prop. It was a lot of fun, and I'm never going to do it again because it was a pain in the ass. And I actually could have just sent it to him in the Discord. It was a one and done. It didn't get revisited.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that's one of the things I feel as a GM. The intent of the handout is often something that I don't know what it is. There's something in the player's psyche where I often find they don't stick in the way that I expect them to. I go because this is printed out and tea-stained and burned around the edges, the indication to me as a GM is this is important. If not, it is probably the most important prop of the piece. But the 2 or 3 times that I've really invested in that idea, one of them was aspects of an explorer's journal that I burnt away that was meant to be the key guiding influence. I don't know, like in
the books of Mist, I guess.
Yeah. What was the weird one that's coming to my head is Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Disney. Great film.
Yeah.
The Shepherd's Journal.
Yes.
Yeah. This is your Shepherd's Journal. This is what you keep coming back to.
You ever read House of Leaves?
What? House of Leaves? No.
I'll lend it to you later. We'll talk
I have a
about
little
it another
notebook
time.
here. It's going in.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, speaking of crucial records.
Yeah. So it was the crucial record, and then I quickly realized 4 or 5 sessions in, the players are not using it that way. They're not getting the joy of it that way, so I have to find other delivery information sources. And the other one that truly broke my heart was very big, important game, looking for a will of the king to discover succession, and I adapted the entire will of Henry VIII to be about my setting. An incredible... I love it. I found it recently, and I read through it word for word because I baked in all of these hints and loopholes, and I swear not a single... This was in my West Marches game. Not a single player read the will, and I was like, holy... I still love it to bits. I posted it. It's on the Drakenheim Reddit if you want it. But
the thing that's interesting
it better.
about that, I talked about how I just throw my maps. I pin them in, in the Discord server. My players can go back and check them at any time they like. There's a setting guide that's also pinned. They can read through that anytime they like. And if they ask me a question about something that's in it, I tell them very politely to go and fuck themselves.
Players don't like to read.
Fucking read it. Go ahead and read it. And because I've done that enough times now, my players do. Because I actually am not bombarding them with stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It's just 2 pieces of evergreen information that are there the whole campaign long. Eventually, they have to go back and look at things to really understand where they are in the world and how they enter an area and they start to get embroiled in some of the political goings on. And after that session, they go home and they read the fucking setting guide to remind themselves what the current state of politics are. Now, the additional information I'll give them is, hey, here's what's changed since the time of that guide being written. We're a couple of in-universe months into this campaign. Here's what's developed since then. I'll give them that, right? And I'll often give them that prompted by questions. Those questions might even just be, is this up to date? Has anything changed? Then I'll go, oh, yes, here's what's changed, this thing, this thing, this thing. This king's been deposed. This house is on the run, they're in exile now. Things like that. But I don't give them the information that's contained in the guide again.
Yeah.
They have to go back and read it. That's how it damn well works. And I'm at this point convinced that if I did start integrating handouts heavily, if I had those note scraps and things like that, if I had a lost diary that they were slowly filling out, I'm at the point where I think I could actually do that and my players would revisit it. They would find those things that I put the effort to put in there because I make them. I do not hold their hand. It's part of my high diegesis approach.
Yeah, and a handout, even the incredible puzzle that you've laid before me here, is one. It's when they work well, the players buy into it like my character is looking at the thing, and it becomes another way of role-playing. It becomes another way of fleshing out the reality of the world, whatever it may be.
And this particular one, by the way, when I put it in front of them, the wizard character was like, these don't look like magical runes. They don't seem like they'd be related to a spell. And then out of character, he looks at me and he goes, these aren't related to a spell, are they? And I go, no, they're not related to a spell. And then someone else, goes, is this a language that I would know? I go, what languages do you know? And they go, oh, I know this. And I'm like, yep, those are dwarven runes. You would immediately clock that. And then he goes in character, he pushes the wizard out of the way and he goes, you idiot, that's because these are dwarven runes. Not everything is your magical mumbo-jumbo. And it was a wonderful in-character moment. It's a shame that the puzzle sucked ass and took 4 hours after that, because that was a great start.
We had a similar one. It was like an Indiana Jones style, like various temple raids, and there was like a various panel floor that they had to get across, a puzzle floor.
Oh yeah.
And then at a certain point, I asked my players midway through, like, can you be solving the problem, but imagining that, Dorian, you are standing on this panel and you're shouting back to them over here what you need to do next? And it was joyful. And we had the panel out in front of us, and their token was moving around as they played.
I did a similar... It's reminded me of a similar thing. Again, one of the few times I've given my players a handout, and it was puzzle-related. It was, a bottomless pit with invisible panels, and they could light the room with 3 different colors that revealed certain tiles that were safe to stand on, but they could never light the room in any one color at any given time. So I had more than one color at any given time. So what I would make them do is they had to declare what color the room was lit in, and I would hand them that one, and when they changed the color, I took it away and handed them the other one, and they had to go and draw the safe path on a separate piece of paper or otherwise memorize it. So the handout worked because I was handing it to them and taking it away, so that, again, it was still in front of them in a diegetic manner.
I did a similar thing. It was a Roll20 game, and it was a puzzle where there were all of these words. They translated all of the alphabet that was on the floor earlier in the adventure, and then they had to solve it in an initiative. So they had the handout, but instead of going like, and now we're going to sit here for hours and hours and hours, it's like round by round, and I had a round timer for that one. You need to decide which pathway you're going to take on this floor and how it's going to go. And it was very exciting. And that one of the players really, really clocked a safe route to the end, and they got to the end of the puzzle, which triggered the boss encounter, but that meant that player had to spend 3 rounds solo with the big boss of the dungeon while the other players were navigating across the board to get there.
I've gone the opposite direction. I designed just a real evil bastard of a dungeon, truly, and I didn't give my players a map. It was very much a, you've got a map this as you go kind of deal.
Oh, yeah, which is the old school way of doing it. I have a friend who loves to do that.
And it was basically just, here's a web of interconnected rooms and corridors. Every time you enter a corridor, there is some fucking shit that's going to happen. There was certain ones that would appear in multiple corridors, like, okay, this one is going to release gas on initiative round 1. On initiative round 2, the gas is going to ignite. Everyone still in the room takes this much damage. First time, blew them all to hell, right? Second time they came into a room, a corridor like that, and initiative round 1, gas gets released. They're all like, hustle, move. Summon casts haste, everyone moves and dashes on their turn. Like, they get out as quickly as they can. There's like the one slow guy still left at the end who takes it in the teeth, but he's the barbarian and he can just kind of shrug it off. Worked a charm. What I didn't tell my players, and what they only figured out as they reached the far end, is that it was a there and back dungeon. They had to get to the end, cool. Get the thing, get back out. Every corridor after leaving it was locked permanently, and it was possible to soft lock the dungeon. It was possible to get trapped in a room with no exits, TPK, start again. And as soon as they realized that, they realized it because they were tracking it, they'd figured out the shape, and I had described that the corridors were locked. They were like, wait a minute. If we loop back around, if we go to this room, there's no way out after this corridor locks. Matt, does this dungeon soft lock? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, oh my God. And if I put a map in front of them, they would have pinned it too quickly. I would have lost that moment of reveal. What we're really arriving at here, I think, Patty, and when we talk about handling handouts, is we don't do it and we don't like them.
Ooh, I will just put one more story. Very, very quick. I don't know why. My favorite handout I've ever received was in a high intrigue game. We'd been looking for a particular magical artifact that had been stolen, and we retrieved it. And as a group, we received it early in the campaign. And it was just this beautiful gemstone that we were told was very important in the story. And the GM would always present it to us at the beginning of the session and go, this is in your possession. And we didn't know what it was or what it was for, and it became this incredible totemic object of the campaign for us. And that is a very different, it's not a puzzle, it's not a map, there's not information to be gleaned out of it. It was literally like, this is the MacGuffin that you hold. What are you going to do with it? Which was just a very different tone to anything else that I played with before. And one that I would probably steal again if I created a campaign that revolved around an object like that. But it's very beautiful. It's 3D printed, beautiful little rock with symbols carved into the top. The Stone of Golor, I think it was called. Very, very beautiful, very, very mysterious.
I love that idea. This is actually just devolved into us sharing interesting stories about things we have done in campaigns we've played and run. And honestly, that has made this one of the loveliest things I could ever imagine, and far better than a 4-hour puzzle, both for its shortness and for its entertainment factor. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed that episode of the One Shot Show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/one-shot-show. You'll see all of the offerings available. You can commission custom episodes. You can get video versions of our regular weekly episodes. You can get monthly bonus episodes where we deep dive into particular topics. You can submit questions for our regular Q&A format. And we have a new offering that we're going to be launching this month, where at the end of each month, we will do a live Q&A session in our Discord server talking about the episodes from the most recent month. Also, for the next 3 months, anyone who backs us on Patreon will get 5 complimentary invites to our Discord server as we grow that community further. Please check it out and please support the show.